Started. We are waiting for you. We are all here. We are waiting for you, for your presence, your presentations. So please. Technology problems. We would like to switch the movies, and we want to show you a movie that is done by our student, and the movie is called 5G Network. Okay, right. Thanks.
Welcome back to the Open Days at the University of Technology online lecture series. Have you ever wondered what exactly is 5G? Another fancy idea of scientists? A technical advancement that isn't whatsoever surprising or exciting? Unnecessary new technology? I can assure you it's none of those. How about a technology that is going to have a huge positive influence on our everyday lives, thanks to many improvements that go along with it? Let's get right into this. But first things first, to understand what is 5G, it is crucial for us to know a little bit about current cellular network technology, that is 4G LTE. What is it used for, and where its capabilities come from? 20 years ago, a lot of us thought that GSM cell phones were revolutionary in many terms. They allowed remote communication between people thanks to the use of voice calls and short text messages. What's more, they were becoming smaller and more compact over time. We all know the famous, legendary, indestructible Nokia 3310 cell phone. At that time, at least a few of you have been afraid of clicking the web button in fear of the extremely high costs of connecting to the internet. Since that time, everything has changed. We can see more and more frequently how confidently mobile service providers advertise their quick internet access. Faster connection, bigger data plans, less expensive cost per megabyte. Almost all of us use 4G LTE mobile internet. Why do we need it? Why is 4G LTE necessary, and in the near future 5G? Nowadays, we use internet in many various applications. Social media, such as Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, where we can find a huge amount of news, pictures, or videos. Payment services, online shopping services, news services, GPS navigation, video conferences, music streaming, say Spotify, Tidal, Deezer, Apple Music, or video streaming, say Netflix, HBO Max, Hulu, Disney+, Amazon Prime Video, and so it goes on. There are literally countless use cases for the internet, both landline and what's of interest to us, mobile. All these services require a certain amount of information to be sent over to the user device. These information packages are called data. Every service we just mentioned is able to take away in a given time a particular amount of megabytes or gigabytes from our mobile data plan. To put this in a wider perspective, let's jump into mobile data amount charts from one of the leading providers of information and communication technology, Ericsson. According to the June 2020 report, in 2019, mobile network users all around the world transmitted 33 exabytes of data monthly. To put this amount into perspective, average hard drive inside your notebook has capacity of 1 terabyte. 1 exabyte is 1,000,000 terabytes. That's a huge amount of data, isn't it? All the data we send and receive, text messages, pictures, applications data, telemetry data, video games data, music, movies, it's massive. All these unimaginable exabytes have to go through cellular network each month. That leads to Ericsson's clear predictions. Video traffic in mobile networks is about to grow by around 30% annually till 2025. It will account for nearly 3/4 of mobile data traffic, which is a significant increase in comparison to just a bit over 60% in 2019. Mobile video traffic growth is driven by the increase of embedded video in many online applications, growth of video on demand, VOD streaming services in terms of both subscribers and viewing time per subscriber, and the evolution towards higher screen resolutions on smart devices. Users are increasingly streaming and sharing video material. The most common resolution for video streamed over cellular network is estimated to be 480p, varying from network to network, with smartphones and networks improving constantly. Streaming in HD 720p and Full HD 1080p is becoming more common. Let's not forget about the latest trend of 4K streaming. It's going to be more and more common from now on. Not so long ago, a video streaming brand, Netflix, allowed to watch their videos in 4K resolution. A lot of content creators on YouTube are moving towards 4K resolution as well. Many times at a higher frame rate, like 60 frames per second instead of 24 or 30. That requires some extra bandwidth as well. More immersive media formats and applications are expected to become a major contributing factor to mobile data traffic growth. For example, watching a streamed esports event in multi-view would consume about 7 gigabytes per hour, while a high-quality AR/VR stream with a media bitrate of 25 megabits per second would consume as much as 12 gigabytes per hour. This amount of data we are talking about is going to be even larger if we consider another scenario, that is, renting a flat without landline connection to the internet. It's quite often that in rented apartments, there is no way to get a landline internet connection due to lack of permission from a landlord or an administrator. In that case, we could buy a 4G LTE modem, which partially solves the problem. In a daily peak time, data rate may be quite low and thus unsatisfying. Keeping in mind all this information, we have to admit that current 4G LTE network won't be sufficient in the near future. It won't be able to deliver demanded performance of these networks worldwide. What's concerning even more, when we consider the always growing number of smart devices. These days, during busy hours, LTE network is often able to reach at best a few megabits per second end-to-end data rate, which is a bit underwhelming. Lots of people want to use it in the same time, and the number of base stations, places we get LTE signal from, is limited. Capacity of each base station is limited. LTE has its own limitations we can't forget. The more mobile network users are placed in a given area, the slower data rate each of them gets. Everyone gets about the same data rate, so if you see a low data rate, your friends using the same network are probably seeing the same data. However, it may vary from device to device, as there are a lot of variables to consider. And here comes in the 5G network with its advanced technologies designed to greatly improve the capacity of entire network, allowing much more devices to work simultaneously. So now we know the trends in terms of network capacity and why everything is about the data. Knowing all this and 2G up to 4G network capabilities, a lot of brilliant scientists all over the world are constantly researching and looking for new solutions that would be able to deliver what customers demand to ensure the highest quality of provided mobile services. At the basic level, 5G wireless technology is meant to deliver higher multi-gigabits per second peak data speeds, ultra-low latency, more reliability, massive network capacity, increased availability, and a more uniform user experience to more users. 5G is designed to deliver peak data rates of up to 20 gigabits per second. A leading manufacturer of cell phone modems, Qualcomm, already offers 5G modems, enabling their users to transmit data at the peak data rate of 7.5 gigabits per second. With growing share of 5G network within all other mobile networks, user experience will be better and smoother over time. Of course, when 5G is deployed. What I've just told you so far is not the entire story. 5G network has other, no less important intended uses. 5G is not just about higher data rates and lower latency. 5G network will enlarge very fast-growing branch of industry called the IoT, Internet of Things. But what actually is the Internet of Things? To understand the IoT and to what needs does it deliver, for a brief moment we have to forget about our usual way of using the Internet and think outside the box. The term IoT has been for quite a while in the past now. It assumes coexistence of a very large number of devices around us, wearables, mutual connectivity between cars, smart homes, smart traffic light systems, smart cities, smart transportation, smart petrochemical industry, smart agriculture, smart medicine. I could go on like that for at least half a day. But why is IoT needed at first place? Let's go together through a few use cases, scenarios for IoT technology. It's happening right now, and development of it will go only faster from now. Let's go with a state-of-the-art city and its road traffic. Cars, trucks, buses, anything you could imagine. Basic IoT modules inside vehicles allows us to introduce an early warning system of potentially dangerous situations. For example, emergency braking, an accident, a blocked road. The latest example of an intelligent car is Volkswagen Golf 8, launched this year. They implemented so-called IQ Drive system, which is prepared to be driver's assistance during many situations, like the ones I just mentioned. If you don't have a car equipped with such a technology, you can still experience it partially by using a GPS navigation system like Google Maps. Such intelligent systems will be able to plan our route to a destination in an optimal way, reducing time and costs of our journey. A entire set of telemetry data sent by IoT modules from vehicles will be a very valuable information for artificial intelligence, AI algorithms, allowing them to manage the road traffic in a better way. Even such an ordinary signaling devices, as traffic lights, will be powered by those intelligent algorithms influenced by our driving data. It's another step forward when it comes to building smart cities, and it's going beyond what we know today, like semi-autonomous Tesla cars. Another example where IoT could potentially be really helpful is a quick notification system about road accidents. The basic principle is as follows. When an accident occurs, services like police or ambulance are notified about it virtually immediately. This system is able to reduce road accidents casualties number, which is quite high nowadays, according to World Health Organization. Approximately 1.35 million people die each year as a result of road traffic crashes. Similarly, we could introduce IoT technology to the railway system. Although railway crashes are rather rare, they still happen and can be reduced even further. Another interesting example of IoT technology can be found in Poland, in Zaporozhye city. Regular garbage collection was taking place there among a fixed route. This operation mode was suboptimal and created unnecessary costs and exhaust fumes. Garbage trucks had to run too often, and they were frequently coming across half-empty garbage containers. As a solution to the problem, sensors were installed inside the garbage containers that report the filling level of them to the central management system. The system prepares optimal routes for garbage trucks basing on the collected data, and the effect of introducing the system is a significant reduction in the cost of garbage collection and a reduction in air pollution by reducing exhaust emission. The costs associated with the operation of garbage trucks have also decreased. A similar system can be found, for example, in Spain, in the region of Salamanca, where before introduction of a system like that, garbage trucks were covering the route of 3,000 kilometers every day. Average daily distance is 1,000 kilometers less now, thanks to the IoT. I believe these savings are self-explanatory. A third example of use of the IoT technology is smart metering system in Biekany-Śląskie town. A local water supply company wanted to effectively monitor their water meters and reduce data transmission costs. A new system based on LoRa technology was introduced. Almost 6,500 sensors were placed all over the city's water meters. It allowed not only to decrease data transmission costs, but also enabled the company to minimize losses resulting from water leaks or unauthorized water intake. Alright, but where does 5G stand in all of this? What's the relationship between the 5G and IoT? To understand this properly, I shall briefly describe what are the IoT requirements when it comes to a radio transmission technology. Primarily, IoT devices are designed to send data slowly, often in a given time period, say once per 10 minutes. Such slow transmissions are called narrowboat transmissions. Devices operating in the narrowband radio band should work for a very, very long time on battery power. Imagine a situation where the batteries inside sensors were to be replaced every few months. Additional unnecessary cost. Moreover, the devices themselves should be cheap to manufacture. If a city wants to install, say, a few thousands of them, every penny counts. Currently, the most common approach is a two-step communication. In the first stage, transmission is based on cheap, energy-efficient components to communicate with a gateway. Second stage is about sending locally collected data directly to the cloud. This two-step communication of access to the cloud is troublesome and forced by the lack of appropriate direct access technologies. Typical solutions powering the first stage of the transmission are using 2G GPRS and 3G UMTS technologies. The costs of 2G, 3G modules is acceptable in many cases. However, they have significant disadvantages. High energy consumption and problem with network coverage if these devices were installed in some disadvantageous places like basements. Faster technologies like LTE Category 4 and LTE Category 6 are also suboptimal in many use cases of the IoT. Most often, a very fast data transmission is not required in industrial applications. The most crucial features are low energy consumption, long battery life, and low cost of components. Faster LTE doesn't fulfill these requirements. Another significant angle to this case is network availability. How long will 2G GPRS be available? Mobile operators are not only limiting their 2G development, but also its maintenance, focusing instead on LTE and 5G technologies. It might seem that no choice of technology in this case would be satisfactory. You can invest in a module supporting the old 2G GPRS technology, costing a few dollars, but its service life may be relatively short, and replacement with an LTE module could be inevitable sooner or later. Or you can use the 4G LTE standard. However, such modules are much more expensive than legacy 2G modules, so the cost of the entire investment will be significantly increased. Here comes Narrowboat IoT standard. To be specific, LTE category NB1. It's a huge evolutionary step compared to the previous LTE standards with IoT extensions. It's entirely new tech in terms of LTE connectivity that allows for extremely low energy consumption, up to 10 years on a single charge. What's even better, it allows the modules to transmit data with even lower signal levels than with 2G technology. With Narrowboat IoT, the modules can be placed in even more difficult to reach places. Moreover, Narrowboat IoT modules are as cheap as modules based on the old 2G GPRS technology. As a result, the industry will be much more likely to use this new standard than the pure classic LTE Category 4, Category 6. The 5G network will ensure that standardized coexistence of Narrowboat IoT and 5G New Radio. This means both the IoT devices discussed now and devices that require high data rates will use a common shared frequency band, including smartphones or, generally speaking, 5G modems. Narrowboat IoT standard will continue evolving as a part of the 5G specifications, meaning that mobile operators can leverage low-power, wide-area investments already today and continue as a part of the 5G evolution. It's safe to conclude that Narrowboat IoT and LTE-M standards are in line with the overall plan for 5G technology investments. The IoT market is constantly growing, and 2020 specifications allow installing up to a mind-blowing 1 million devices per square kilometer. That's an enormous number of devices to support. I believe now we know the main ideas behind the 5G invention. Now it's time to talk about the technology itself. It's possible you've heard from your neighbor that 5G technology involves installing a lot of antennas, followed by a lot of new masts. That's true. Building 5G network will require a much more developed radio infrastructure than is currently the case. But why? What is the reason for this? Every radio transmission we know uses the very same physical phenomenon, electromagnetism. Let's take a look at the electromagnetic spectrum graph. Mutual changes in the electric and magnetic fields create an electromagnetic wave. I'm not going to talk about the very nature of the electromagnetic field, but only what can be observed and what are the consequences of it. The current 2G, 3G, 4G mobile telephony in Poland operates in the 400 2700 MHz frequency range. If you tune your FM radio to 98.4 MHz, it's still the same physical phenomenon as with 2G, 3G or 4G. The only difference is the frequency of the transmitted or received electromagnetic waves. Our common Wi-Fi networks operate at frequencies of 2400 MHz, that is 2.4 GHz, as well as of 4900 MHz, up to 5800 MHz, known as 5 GHz Wi-Fi. What's important? It is still the same physical phenomenon. In Poland, 5G networks will operate mostly at frequency ranges including 400 MHz, 700 MHz, 1800 MHz, 2100 MHz, 2500 MHz, 2700 MHz, as well as at higher than before frequencies, for example, 3500 MHz. The frequencies are country dependent, so in a place you are living, this may be different. The 5G network will also offer an innovative solution called millimeter wave. Transmission in Poland using this technology will be based on the frequency up to 28 GHz. Ultra-fast data transmission, though not all mobile network operators seem to be interested in implementing millimeter wave, mostly due to a very high attenuation of radio signal. By the way, if you want to see how the actual 5G millimeter wave experience looks like, I suggest you watch Linus Tech Tips video, where Linus tries to literally cut.
Thank you, it was great to listen. So much to think about, and now we are moving on, and our next participants, State Science Institute of Science Modernization. Please welcome Natalia Hancharova and Irina Vasilenko from the city of Kiev. The presentation called STEM World of Innovation Opportunities. Please, you are very welcome.
Okay, good evening, greetings from Kiev. Are you hear me? Tell me, please.
Yes, very good.
Okay, I try to show you my presentation.
Very good.
Okay, thank you. Let's start. I want to speak about STEM, the world of innovation opportunities. I'm Natalia Goncharova from the Institute of Education Content Modernization from Kiev. So wait, please. Okay. We live in the era of first technological industrial revolution, at a time when change are taking all areas of our lives. Technologies are rapidly changing and innovations are spreading. New professions are emerging that are associated with high-tech manufacturing, the interaction of the natural sciences. Education today must be advanced integrate new advances in science and technology in combination with the best educational systems, ensure the equality of human resources. It is important to form the skills of 21st century in young people. This includes critical thinking, communication skills, creativity, problem solving, collaboration, information literacy, technology skills and digital literacy, innovation skills, media literacy, thinking skills, and more. So today, the STEM education confidently works in the regions of Ukraine. STEM education is a modern educational technology aimed at the development of personality through the formation of competence, natural science picture of the world, worldviews and life values using a transdisciplinary approach to learn best of the practical application of scientific, mathematics, technical and engineering knowledge and skills to solve practical problems for their future use in professional activities. STEM education has become one of the priorities of education. Development of STEM education today. Conceptual principles of STEM education today is a concept of development of natural and mathematical education. STEM education approved by the Order of Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine. Action plan for the implementation of the concept of development of natural and mathematical education until 2027, and Order of the Ministry of Education and Science of Ukraine, an approval of the standard list of teaching aids and equipment for classrooms and STEM laboratories and other legalization. The action plan for the implementation of the STEM education until 2027 provides for holding conferences, seminars, symposiums on the use of the latest methods of STEM education for pedagogical and scientific pedagogical workers, holding competitions, Olympiads, intellectual competitions, summer schools, and Ukrainian festivals of science for students and teachers, professional development of pedagogical and scientific pedagogical workers, on the use of the latest methods of STEM education, ensuring the replenishment of libraries and educational institutions with quality popular science and scientific literature, implementation of research and preparation of recommendation using the methods of natural and mathematical education, STEM education in educational institution. And in order to promote and advance the introduction of STEM education in Ukraine in 2015, a Department of STEM Education was established at State Scientific Institution, Institute of Education Content Modernization. And now I want to join us my colleague Irina Vasilenko, and she will introduce your resources and activities for STEM education. Thank you for attention.
Can you see my presentation?
Yes, we can.
Okay. One second. Well, let's start. One of the most important points for popularization and coordination of understanding the essence of the concept of STEM, scientific and methodological approaches to the elaboration of STEM education was the development of a glossary of terms. This is an electronic version on the annotated catalog called STEM Education Problems and Prospects. This catalog is constantly updated. Additional information can be found at our website. You can see this site on my slide, inzo.gov.ua. Another effective, affordable, and free solution for professional development for resource and teaching staff was training is distance sessions STEM school. This event was created in cooperation between Institute of Education Content Modernization, Publishing House Osvita, and University of Management. STEM school works on the guiding principle from teacher to teacher. Another principle, called stability, applies from the first session to the present days. It motivates speakers and the organization committed to work in volunteer basis and sincerely share experience with the teaching community. Thanks to the involvement of various resources and cooperating during the sessions, teachers have the opportunity to get acquainted with the latest development in the educational market, proposals, experience of speakers of business structures, non-governmental organizations, and other organizations. STEM School is a free resource with a certificate program of professional development of teachers in STEM education. On my slide, you can see we spent 10 sessions from 4 years. Took part around 70 students and took part 450 speakers. This WebSTEM school have 2 sessions in February and in August. The development of professional skills of teacher is facilitated by their annual participation in various events of international, national, regional levels. For example, the best STEM lessons, Science on Stage, online contest Teacher of the Year according to the popular science magazine Колосок, Giliantos Teacher, Competition Global Teacher Prize Ukraine, and nationwide event The Best STEM Publication. One of the tasks of the STEM Education Department is to facilitate access of all stakeholders to information about the current status and prospects of STEM education development in Ukraine. Our department is the initiator of the organization of information platforms which are an effective leverage for the formation of the Ukrainian paradigm of STEM education. Under the program of International Scientific Practical Conference, STEM Education, State of Implementation and Prospects of Development, and a nationwide Scientific Practical Conference, STEM the World in Innovation Opportunities. The main topics of this conference are scientific and theoretical aspect of the problem, the experience of implementation, planning the prospect for the development of STEM education. This events the central event for teacher innovators and specialists for all STEM education. Besides, every year spent a nationwide festival, STEM Spring, nationwide conference, international robotics. Therefore, we can say the STEM education is successfully implemented in Ukrainian. Strengthening its role is one of the priorities of modernization of education. Development personally through the formation of competences based on the practical application of scientific, mathematics, technical, and engineering knowledge and skills to decide practical problems for future use in professional activities. Thank you for the attention. If you have some questions, I ready answer it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your presentation, and it was very interesting. And now we are giving the word to our Polish colleagues, please.
Now we would like to present you with a movie of the most interesting organ of our body, which is the brain. Dr. Michał Kucewicz, I'm sorry, will give you a presentation and a short speech about brain.
Hi everyone. Before we start with the topic of our talk, I want you to make a simple thought experiment. I want you to close one of your eyes and with your finger gently press on the eyelid of the opposite eye like this. So you will see that the whole world in front of you shifts in the direction of your finger press. And just think about it. You know that the physical world that you see in front of you is not actually moving, but only your visual representation of the world. So what we actually see is not the world itself, but merely a representation of it through the interface of your vision, through communication of the information carried in the light that is reflected from the objects in front of you and reaches your retina and ultimately is interpreted by the visual systems of your brain to create this world that you see. So perhaps it is not that surprising that today we will hear about the brain-computer interfaces and the brain and the human mind from a neuroscientist working in the multimedia systems department at the Faculty of Electronics, Telecommunication and Informatics of the Gdańsk University of Technology. So I'll be talking to you, or should I say, interacting with your senses of vision and hearing through this video, just teasing a little bit, about the very thing that enables our communication with each other now and with the world around us, the human brain. Let's first introduce the object of this talk. The brain is by far the most complex object in the universe in terms of the number of possible connections between the billions of brain cells and trillions of connections between them. Mathematically speaking, the number of theoretically possible combinations of these trillion connections exceed the number of atoms in the universe. So this theoretical number is not the actual number. The theoretical number of how many ways there are to connect those trillion connections is actually bigger than all of the particles that make the universe. Yet these astronomical numbers are contained within approximately 1 kilogram of jelly that I can carry in the palms of my hand. But how can we interface with the brain? How can we see and hear its activity to understand what it is doing, to understand the complexity that is going on when the brain processes information? And can I communicate back with it to change or restore the activities that don't work in brain disorders? This is what I'll be talking to you about. So just like with our senses, the computers and special recording techniques that we use only see a small fragment of the spectrum of the brain's various activities. If you think about seeing again, or vision, we only see a tiny fragment of the spectrum of electromagnetic waves that are out there in the world, but we only see 1 or 2% of the visible light. So we don't see the infrared, for example, and the slower electromagnetic wavelengths. And likewise, we don't see the faster, the ultraviolet, faster electromagnetic waves, even though they are there. We just simply do not have ways or means to receive them. So here you can see a strip of polyimide electrodes, as well as some larger wide strip of round electrodes that record from small parts of the human cortex, just tiny parts, which are exposed surgically during an open brain surgery. Brain cells that are underneath those electrodes, which we record, they communicate information between each other through electrical energy. They speak the language of electricity. When the electromagnetic wave of light reaches the retina of your eye, or the mechanical energy of the air vibrations, sound, reaches the cochlea of your ear, they are transformed into changes of electrical potential of the brain cells, also called neurons. And these electrical potentials are understood and propagated as electrical impulses across networks of neurons in various parts of the brain. Then synchronized neuronal networks give rise to oscillations of the electrical field potential, which are commonly known as brainwaves. An example would be the famous alpha rhythm, which you might have heard about, which is present in the back of your brain with your eyes closed. And there are other slower oscillations, like the delta or theta rhythms, or the faster gamma rhythms. And we can record and study the language of these electrical activities by placing special electrodes on the cortical surface, just like you see here in the photograph, or implant them deep, penetrating into the brain. Of course, this is only possible in special cases of brain disorders that require implantation of electrodes through the skull to treat drug-resistant seizures or severe movement or mental disorders. Here in the upper corner, you can see an example of a grid of electrodes covering the side surface of the brain's cortex, as well as a straight array of electrodes penetrating deep into the sausage-like structures called the hippocampus. Below that, there are 3 traces of brainwave recordings, or you could say intracranial EEG, from selected contacts on these implanted electrodes. These brainwaves of particular frequency from the spectrum of those theta, alpha, gamma, and other bands can be detected just like the bird highlighted in red. Or they can be displayed as the colorful spectrogram that you see in the background, with warmer colors indicating more activity at a given frequency in y-axis and time in x-axis, as the patient are remembering stimuli presented on a computer screen. So this is one way in which we can visualize or translate what the brain is doing and what ultimately is created in our mind. In other words, we display with color to our eyes what happens in the head of the patient. You can think of it as a translated message of what happened in the mind, broadcasted to you by the media of a simple one-way brain-computer interface. But this is just a macro-scale picture of those brainwaves taken from far away and not seeing the details of what is going on underneath those waves. Another way is to look very carefully at individual impulses of specific neurons or at the local fast brainwaves generated by the local scientific neurons that underlie the emergence of a concept or idea in our mind. In this example, bringing a thought about a sleeping baby into mind is associated with specific neurons here and there, lighting up with electrical energy, which is captured as single impulses, known as the action potentials, by the nearby small golden microelectrode contacts, or as aggregated fast brainwaves, known as high-frequency oscillations, by the larger silver macroelectrodes. Notice that these local activities will be captured at different points along the length of this great depth electrode, going horizontally through the brain tissue, in this case. In a way, such electrodes can hear the microscale of very quiet whispers of the brain cells that take part in creating individual concepts or thoughts in our mind. They effectively provide an interface between the brain cells and the computer that reads their electrical activity. The same electrode contacts can also be used in the opposite direction to deliver electrical current into the brain and stimulate the electrical activity of the brain cells. I'll tell you more about this a little later. So let's take a step back and realize what it really means. These unique recordings of electrical activity give us access to the cosmos of our mind. Our thoughts, memories, emotions can in principle be traced down to these electrical activities generated in distinct parts of the brain by specific brain cells. And the same activities, in turn, can be locally stimulated by the brain-computer interface with particular electrodes to improve abstract processes in our mind. Gosh, this is where the material meets the abstract, where the electrical impulses of the cell membrane meet abstract ideas in our mind. It is phenomenal. Just imagine how such brain-computer interfaces could be used to bring back people's memories, identity, or even consciousness that are impaired in many brain disorders. The key to accomplish this task, though, is to understand the language that the brain cells use to generate the contents of our mind, and to apply this knowledge to effectively communicate with them to restore or modulate their electrical activities. It sounds simple, but we still do not know how many cells support generation of a single thought, where exactly are they in the brain, and the electrical activities that are crucial for this process. You might have heard about the multi-billion projects for brain-mind interfaces, like the Neuralink from the inventor of Tesla cars, and other projects that are now, there's multiple of them around the world. They develop very impressive technology, but have little idea where to apply. So where can we start? In the beginning was the Word, and the Word became flesh. This Bible verse from the Gospel according to John is very pertinent for this talk, because it links the most fundamental abstract concept, a word, with the material of the flesh, of the brain. The abstract, the word, and the brain, the flesh. Our brain and mind electrophysiology lab started with investigating how words are encoded and remembered in the brain. We knew that many different parts of the brain are electrically activated when words of specific meaning are displayed. For example, a word hammer would activate not only the visual parts located in the occipital cortex in the back of the brain, but also the hand movement areas in the motor cortex, which is located more in the front. Rose or sheep would likewise activate in different areas related more with the sense of smell, touch, emotion, or others. It becomes even more complicated with more abstract words like soul. So the problem is where to put the electrodes or the brain-computer interface to communicate with the contents of our mind. In this case, to read or stimulate memory for specific words in our mind, we cannot place the electrodes into all those various brain areas. But is there one area that controls remembering words in general? This is again this major obstacle for all the current brain technologies. And this is what we tried to address in an American project of a global neuroscience initiative that I was involved in before starting our laboratory at the University of Technology. The goal of that project was to develop technology for a brain-computer interface to record and stimulate its activity for memory enhancement. In other words, we worked to develop a prototype of the world's first memory prosthesis. And you can see in the glass brain on the right this photograph from an exhibition of the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago. You cannot quite see it in this photo, but the prototype had a depth electrode implanted deep into the hippocampus, remember the sausage-like structure, and the surrounding cortex inside the temporal lobe, so deep under the temples of your head, based on the idea that these brain areas control remembering words. Well, this exhibit has likely been changed because we found that using the brain-computer interface in these areas will actually impede memory and not make it better. A team of scientists that I was living at the American Mayo Clinic as part of that project found another area called lateral temporal cortex, which is just beneath our temples, not deep down there. That was the only stimulation target that improved remembering words. And this one discovery that we made with one Mayo Clinic patient, and then confirmed with 3 more patients, and then published in 2 scientific papers reporting this memory enhancement in overall almost 50 patients, completely changed the focus of the entire project and led to a startup company and establishment of the brain-mind electrophysiology lab now in Poland. So to help you realize the significance of this discovery, we will now make a quick experiment. In a moment, you will see a video with this very patient as the discovery is being made. The patient is stimulating in this new target of the lateral temporal cortex for the first time. This is actually historical footage of this discovery being made. But you will do this task together with him. Your task is to remember as many of the 12 presented words as you can. The word will be presented one after another. The patient is also seeing them with you, but on his screen. The ones in yellow are indicated when electrical stimulation was applied. And unfortunately, I will not be able to stimulate your brain through this video now, so only he will be stimulated. After the last words, he will be doing some mathematical problems to distract him. Your job will be easier, to count how many words you can recall without any distraction. So once the last word is presented, you can start recalling and thinking, dog, wolves, whatever, and count how many you remember. And then you'll see how many did the patient remember and compare with your score. Are you ready? Okay, let's go. Okay. All right. So probably you're shocked because you remembered all 12, he remembered all 12, and you did less than 9, I guess, probably around 7. We were also shocked on that day in this room at Mayo Clinic because he had many more very good trials like this. This was not the only case. And it is astounding that he did not physically feel the effect of stimulation, but said that he could picture it well in his head. So just think for a moment about what happened there. The brain-computer interface tapped into his mental process of picturing the world. People can typically remember 5 or 6 items in this task in their working memory, and there is a limit for that. You cannot remember more than 7 plus minus 2 items, whatever you have to remember, words or digits. On average, we have increased his abstract mental capacity to remember approximately 20% more than what his brain was physically capable of without the stimulation. we overcame the abstract limit of how many words he could remember by simply passing electrical current through a distinct part of the brain. What is even more exciting is that our latest findings suggest that there is another area in the very front of the brain that could have better effects still. So we know the areas that we can use for brain-computer interface. What we're trying to figure out now is what happens inside these areas with specific brain cells and how we can communicate with them. So could this allow us to read specific contents of the mind, i.e. specific words like dog or grandmother, and enhance remembering those that were likely to be forgotten? This brings me to the last component of the brain-computer interfaces that we are working on, tracking of eye movements. In contrast to the electrodes that we have to invasively implant into the brain, the eye tracking technologies are completely non-invasive and require only a small camera with infrared light and efficient computer algorithms to process the images recorded by the camera. What we found is that by tracking the size of pupils in your eyes, we can make a good prediction of whether a word is going to be recalled or forgotten. Why is it relevant for the brain-computer interfaces or communicating with the mind? Well, we know that the pupil size reflects also the release of brain molecules called neurotransmitters that regulate many cognitive states, including attention. Knowing when the brain releases these neurotransmitters, like acetylcholine or adrenaline, can inform the interface about when it's not paying attention, remembering a word, and is likely to forget it. An intervention like electrical stimulation could then rescue the memory for that word. This could in theory be entirely non-invasive, like many other brain-computer interfaces that I do not have time to cover in this talk. At least I will briefly mention to you an example of a toy using a simple non-invasive brain-computer interface. It measures brainwaves of particular frequency, those lower frequencies, from an electrode placed in a band over the forehead that you see in the photo. The power of these brainwaves are telemetrically sent to the device in front of the subject and changed into energy pumping airflow underneath the ball so that it can be elevated. The higher the power of the brainwaves recorded, the greater the airflow elevating the ball higher. Now, what increases the power of the brainwaves over your forehead is the degree to which your mind can concentrate on this task. By concentrating your mind, you can synchronize large populations of brain cells so that the waves of electrical field potential are so powerful that they can be detected even invasively from the skin of your forehead. You don't have to go inside the brain to record them. We use this simple toy in most of our public events to show the principle of how all brain-computer interfaces work. This principle is applied to many clinical and industrial technologies, helping people to control things in the world remotely, using solely the power of the brain and mind. For example, a paralyzed patient can switch on the light in the room or the television. Or patients with a robotic arm can control its movements by simply imagining these actions in their mind, and the robotic arm is changing them into mechanical movements of the robotic fingers. If you would like to try how it feels to control things in the world with your mind, visit one of our events by following our website or Facebook page of the Brain and Mind Lab. So to summarize, we started with a thought experiment of moving your eye and the whole world together with it to show you the simplest way to interact with your mind. Then I told you how the contents of your mind can be recorded and translated from the language of electrical activities of the brain cells. I gave you some examples of some special electrodes that can provide an interface with specific brain cells that support processing of memories. I showed you our discovery made with a brain-computer interface that used electrical stimulation to successfully increase the ability to remember words in the mind. And you compared your performance without the interface with the patient's performance to convince you that these technologies can actually be very useful to restore brain functions, or even enable computer-mediated control of the outside world. All these technologies harness the electrical activities associated with the processes of our mind. So can we go even further to understand the origins of our mental activities? Let's think, where do our thoughts come from? Some are triggered externally by the things that we see in the outside world. You see a dog, you think of a dog. Whereas others are triggered internally from the deposits of your memory, of your past events, when, for example, you close your eyes. So is it possible to interface with these internal sources using the same brain-computer recording and stimulation technologies? If so, then maybe we can also study deeper sources of inspiration of our thoughts in the human soul or even outside of this world. There are multiple examples of mystics and visionaries across all ages who are receiving confirmed prophetic messages and revelations from the divine sources in their prayer. The most known examples include St. Padre Pio, who regularly received information about people and events that he never encountered before, or the three uneducated children of Fatima, who during a series of Marian apparitions received information about the world events that actually came true years later. Even now, there are many astonishing examples of the so-called word of knowledge and prophetic images, when detailed knowledge about people is received without knowing them. So where do these words and images come from when they appear in the mind of a praying person? How do brain cells receive and generate the electrical activity that underlies these words compared to normally presented words, like for example in our memory task? And could this tell us something about our mind, soul, or even about God and their ultimate origin? So technically, these are not the questions that we are addressing in our brain and mind electrophysiology lab at the University of Technology, at least not yet. But our research addresses the fundamental brain processes for these and other functions by using the brain-computer interfaces that use the electrical activities of neurons inside the human brain and the non-invasive signals recorded from our eyes. Our current goal is to use these to improve mental processes involved in memory and higher cognitive functions that are impaired in epilepsy, Parkinson's disease, or dementia by the Alzheimer's disease. Czadarz Topczuk and Dr. Michał Lech are the main researchers behind this project, which is funded primarily by the Foundation for Polish Science. They are both experts in applying computer technologies to solve clinical problems. Czadarz worked previously with technologies applied for restoring functions in face and arm transplant patients, whereas Michał previously applied eye tracking technologies to communicate with and assess cognitive states in patients suffering from disorders of consciousness. Both of them have also engaged in research in the American Mayo Clinic as part of our international network, the Brain and Mind Electrophysiology Lab. We currently have researchers from universities in 3 states in the USA and from 2 academic and clinical centers in the Czech Republic. Our group meets every Friday in different time zones to discuss the latest progress in the lab projects. Thanks to the recent government award for the Gdańsk University of Technology for the best technical research university in Poland, we are hoping to develop this international network of collaborations with the funding opportunities for the new Biotech Center at the university. These will prepare us to compete for the most prestigious European and American funding programs in the ongoing global neuroscience initiatives. By and large, this is a very favorable time to perform world-class neuroscience research in Poland, and specifically in Gdańsk. Last but not least, our research at the Brain and Mind Electrophysiology Lab would not be possible without the research, funding, and industrial partners listed here. We are very privileged to work in a team of the top physicians, biomedical engineers, and computer scientists from the leading Polish, European, and American institutions. Special thanks to Professor Gregory Worrell at the Mayo Clinic, Professor Daniel Wójcik at the Nensky Institute of the Experimental Biology in Warsaw, Professor Paweł Tabakow at the Medical University of Wrocław, and our renowned Gdańsk researchers, Professor Andrzej Cielewski and Professor Jarosław Swager, without whom our laboratory would not even started. We are very grateful for the visionary funding programs of the Foundation for Polish Science, which actually brought me back to Poland, and the National Agency for Academic Exchange, and the Polish Ministry for Science and Higher Education. And finally, we would not have the tools for our brain-computer interfaces if not for the companies that work with us to develop the next generation technologies to treat brain disorders. If you would like to stay tuned and know more about our latest discoveries or how to promote our research, then visit our website or Facebook page. We regularly post news and videos from our various projects. You can also find us on the website of our university, faculty, and the Multimedia Systems Department. Feel free to drop us an email, a question, or attend one of our outreach events. We are looking forward to hearing from you all, and may God bless you. Thank you for your attention. Goodbye.
Head of the Department of Electrical Drive and Automatization, Andrei Vladimirovich Pirozhov, you are welcome. So the report is called the Helicopter System of Integration.
Добрый день всем участникам. Этот доклад был запланирован главным инженером вертолета Мотор-Сич Носичем Дмитрием. Он является духовным.
This report was planned by the Nosich Dmitry. He is.
Он является создателем, идейным создателем и реализатором данного устройства.
He is the creator and the one who provided that particular instrument.
Очень приятно видеть наших выпускников Запорізької політехніки на разных предприятиях нашего региона.
It is very pleasant for me to see the students who graduated from our university to different events of our region.
Это один из примеров нашего флагмана моторостроения Мотор-Сич.
It is one of the examples of our forward-looking policy of Motor-Сич.
Авиадвигатели этого предприятия устанавливаются на большинстве транспортных и пассажирских самолетов Украины и СНГ.
Aviar engines of this institution are set to the most amount of
самолетов.
To the biggest amount of airplanes and helicopters from the post-Soviet era.
Эксплуатируются в более чем 100 странах мира.
They have been used in more than 100 countries of the world.
Одна из разработок это является унифицированное устройство для авионики вертолета.
One of the developments is the universal instrument for avionics.
Переход на совершенно новые подходы не зря назвали стеклянной кабиной, потому что для пилотов очень много пространства освобождается и увеличится обзор и удобность управления.
The development towards the new approaches, you can see through the glass cockpit where the pilots have great space and for the great opportunity for visual space.
Универсальный мультиконвертер позволяет соединить как аналоговые, так и цифровые датчики, и это все выводится на цифровые мониторы.
The universal converter helps to combine
датчики аналоговые и цифровые.
Helps to combine analog and digital devices.
Фактически из вертолета Ми-8 МЦБ превращается как современный автомобиль, можно сравнить это старый автомобиль с Теслой.
Actually, the helicopter is transformed. This transformation of the helicopter can be compared to the transformation of the old car to a new car.
Более подробная информация уже загружалась в чат, и вы можете подробно прочитать на украинском, русском и английском языках.
More specified information has been loaded to the chat, and you can analyze it in Russian and Ukrainian languages.
Поэтому приятно сделать доклад за наших бывших студентов, а теперь ведущих специалистов на наших предприятиях.
That is why it is very pleased and I'm very honored to make this report for our students who graduated from the university while they are in their while they're in our work leaves.
Спасибо.
Thank you so much.
Last film from my faculty, Faculty Management and Economy, title about taxes in Poland.
Chcielibyśmy Was dzisiaj zaprosić w ciekawą podróż po finansach, bankowości i podatkach. Cześć Kasia!
Cześć Dominika, cześć Piotr. Opowiem Wam dzisiaj o systemie bankowości w Polsce. A Wy o czym mówicie?
A my opowiemy Wam, czym są podatki i
Dlaczego są ważne dla budżetu, co warto inwestować i jak oszczędzać. Zaczynamy. W literaturze znajdziemy szereg definicji podatku. Najbardziej rozpowszechniona mówi, że podatek to wszelkie publiczno-prawne, przymusowe i bezcyklowe świadczenie pieniężne na rzecz budżetu państwa lub jednostek samorządu terytorialnego, które nie stanowi przychodów państwowych, funduszy celowych oraz innych jednostek sektora finansów publicznych.
A, czyli już wiadomo, czym są podatki. A dlaczego warto je płacić?
Podatki warto płacić, ponieważ finansują usługi i dobra publiczne.
Dobra publiczne to usługi, które finansowane są z podatków. Są to na przykład policja, straż pożarna czy utrzymanie dróg i chodników. Korzystamy z nich wszyscy na co dzień. A jaka jest historia podatków?
Zobaczmy, jak to było. Historia podatków jest bardzo długa i sięga starożytnych lat. Historia podatków sięga czasów Cesarstwa Rzymskiego i starożytnej Grecji. Pierwsze daniny pochodziły z majątku i dotyczyły głównie zdobyczy i łupów wojennych. Były to także kontrybucje nakładane na podbite narody. W Grecji na początku podatki miały charakter dobrowolnych danin ludności. Następnie wprowadzono tak zwane pogłówne podatki płacone głównie od niewolników. W Cesarstwie Rzymskim wprowadzono pierwszy system podatkowy. Wprowadzono stałe podatki, takie gruntowe, pogłówne i spadkowe. Wprowadzono pierwsze podatki pośrednie, takie jak cła i opłaty. Pojawił się także pierwszy pierwotwór parlamentu, który regulował system podatkowy. Dominika, a słyszałaś już o ciekawostki na temat podatków?
Tak, słyszałam. Jedną nawet znam. Nic tak nie zbliża żony i męża, jak wejście w podróża system
Mam 3 jeszcze inne. Rzeczą, którą najtrudniej w świecie zrozumieć, jest podatek dochodowy. Powiedział to kiedyś Albert Einstein. Od podatków ucieka za granicę co najmniej tylu ludzi i ucieka od dyktatorów. To zaś powiedział James Newman. Śmierć, podatki i rodzenie dzieci. Żadna z tych rzeczy nie przychodzi nigdy w porę. To powiedziała Margaret Thatcher, amerykańska pisarka. A teraz kilka słów na poważnie. Istotą demokracji jest obywatelska świadomość, że każdy grosz z podatku należy do nas wszystkich, a nie tylko do polityków. Podczas gdy większość Amerykanów z trudem wiąże koniec z końcem i my, superbogaci, korzystamy z wielkich ulg podatkowych. Płacę niższe podatki niż moja sprzątaczka. To powiedział Warren Buffett. Polski system podatkowy jako całość jest degresywny, to znaczy dochody po opodatkowaniu są bardziej zróżnicowane niż przed opodatkowaniem. Krótko mówiąc, system podatkowy jest tak zbudowany, że jeśli zamawiają dużo, po opodatkowaniu mają jeszcze więcej.
Piotrek, nie no przecież. Zobacz, jakie to ciekawe. Podatki to zapłata za korzystanie ze świata, podatki to karę, płacimy za miłość do pieniądza, podatki to religia, trzeba wielkiej wiary, żeby dostrzec sens tej.
No dobra, to ustawy. Jakie podatki płacimy? Co jest opodatkowane? Kto płaci podatki? I w jaki sposób płacimy podatki? Jakie podatki? Ogólnie rzecz biorąc, tak jak powiedzieliśmy, historia podatków sięga lat starożytnych. Ale tak naprawdę system, który obecny jest w Europie, ukształtował się w ciągu ostatnich 100 lat. Zbliżone? To znaczy, jakie podatki teraz płacimy?
Przychodowe, dochodowe, konsumpcyjne, czyli konsumpcyjne płacimy na przykład w trakcie zakupów, majątkowe, tutaj płacą taką potrzebną familię, przykład samochodu.
Przychodowe natomiast to podatki, jak sama nazwa wskazuje, płacą do przychodu. Dochodowe różnice. Że możemy przychód pomniejszyć od kosztów systemicznych.
Co jest opodatkowane i w jaki sposób płacimy podatki?
Tak naprawdę podatki dzielimy na pośrednie i bezpośrednie, czyli te, które płacimy sami, te, które płaci ktoś za nas, na przykład w sklepie. Opodatkowani są przedsiębiorcy, osoby fizyczne, gospodarstwa domowe i podmioty zagraniczne.
Aha, czyli tak naprawdę wszyscy?
Niestety tak. Dominika, ale co właściwie wiemy i myślimy o podatkach?
Spójrz. 92% badanych Polaków uważa, że należy płacić podatki, bo z nich finansowane jest m.in. bezpieczeństwo i zdrowie. Z drugiej strony 87% respondentów uznało, że podatki są za wysokie. 90% twierdzi, że słyszało o podatku PIT. Tylko 16% pracujących na umowę o pracę jest przekonane, że nie płaci takiego podatku. 90% słyszało o podatku VAT. 70% twierdzi, że wie, na czym on polega. Ale tylko 42% uważa, że płaci taki podatek. 21% Polaków uważa, że nie płaci żadnych podatków. Ani PIT-u, ani CIT-u, ani nawet VAT-u.
Naprawdę? Takie są wyniki badań? To zatrważające. Na szczęście Polacy coraz częściej uznają, że coraz łatwiejsze jest rozliczenie PIT-a.
A co to jest PIT?
PIT to podatek, który płacimy od dochodu. Polacy raz w roku muszą wypełnić taki dokument. Liczą zazwyczaj 4 strony i na szczęście możemy to już zrobić elektronicznie. Spójrzcie, jeszcze w końcu lat 90. prawie 70% Polaków uznawało, że ta czynność jest trudna. Dzisiaj tylko 20% Polaków uznaje, że wypełnienie tak zwanego PIT-a jest trudne, natomiast ponad 60% uznaje to za czynność łatwą.
Hello, nie zapomnieliście o mnie? Powiedzieliście już kilka słów o podatkach. Teraz czas na historię odnowości. W XIX wieku wioski przyjmowały te same Johanna Mandała, a najbardziej znanym był Nowak politechnikę. Tu na slajdzie widoczne są oryginalne siedziby, a tu obecny wygląd tych samych miejsc. W miejscu domu bankowego Cortexa w Warszawie dziś znajduje się kontrakt historii. A kim był Cortex? Był biznesmen, który odnosił wielkie sukcesy. Prowadził do Polski zarówno do Szwajcarii, jak i do Francuzi. Postaci której wiemy Molie. Jego trochę domowy, gdy wydawał główny przemysł i rolnictwo. A w 1870 roku założył bank handlowy, który działał nieprzerwanie do połowy lat 90. XX wieku, gdy został przyjęty przez amerykański bank inwestycyjny SEED. Dziś jego siedziba mieści się w Pałacu Jaworskim przy placu Lateral. Jeśli to jest jeden z dobra dziecka, a to jednakowa dziecka, to tyle rośnie z wyprawy zamożnej uczniów warszawskie, by na początku XX wieku założyć Filharmonię Warszawską, mieszczącą się przy ulicy Jasnej. Dziś Filharmonia ma siedzibę w tym samym miejscu, chociaż budynek wygląda nieco inaczej. A teraz opowiem Wam o aferze najbardziej znanych haślach, którzy postawili w Polsce na początku XX wieku. Przy ulicy Którędy w Warszawie siedziby miały dwa banki, dyskontowe i zachodnie. Dziś kamienice wyglądają bardzo podobnie. A więc ów Szpicbródka, czyli Stanisław Cichocki, wraz z dwoma partnerami podkładali tunel, który mieli przy pomocy specjalistycznego sprzętu dostać się do skarbca jednego z tych banków. Ale ostatni zostali złapani przez policję. W okresie lat 20. XX wieku na skutek kryzysu gospodarczego, a także hiperinflacji, władze domu bankowe zrezygnowały z komercyjnej działalności. W to miejsce rozwinęły się państwowe banki stworzone przez odradzającą się po zaborach Rzeczpospolitej Polskiej. Nie zapomnijmy, że skuteczne teraz zaczynało z podatkowe.
Dominika, a słyszałaś, czym jest Skarb Państwa?
Tak, słyszałam. Polityka państwowa napływa na dążenie do osiągnięcia jak największych wpływów do budżetu poprzez zawiadanie kolejnych czynników wpływu. Państwo dąży do maksymalizacji zysków. Sam skarb nie jest zyskiem rocznym. Roczna jest natomiast powinna jego skala.
Czyli jak nałożyć wysokie podatki?
Dokładnie. No dobra, a na co właściwie przeznaczamy podatki?
Przeciętnie Polak płaci ponad 23 000 złotych podatku rocznie. W tym na emerytury, edukację, opiekę zdrowotną, pomoc społeczną, transport, wojsko, administrację i policję. Czyli w sumie z podatków finansowanych jest tak naprawdę wszystko. Edukacja, uniwersytety, pomoc społeczna, drogi, przedszkola i wiele innych. Stąd płacenie podatków jest naprawdę ważne.
Na podstawie tego, co powiedziałeś, ważne jest pojęcie patriotyzmu podatkowego, bo dzięki temu, że płacimy podatki w kraju, to wszyscy z tego korzystamy.
Kasia, a jak u Ciebie w bankowości?
Po II wojnie światowej, na skutek zmian ustroju politycznego i systemu gospodarczego, dotkliwe zmiany dotknęły także system bankowy. W okresie po II wojnie światowej własność prywatna banków została zlikwidowana. Banki musiały realizować centralnie narzucone plany gospodarcze. Ograniczano samodzielność banków spółdzielczych, a Narodowy Bank Polski działał jako centralna instytucja kredytowa. W tym okresie liczba banków została ograniczona do 2. Każdy z nich spełniał określoną rolę i nie mógł prowadzić niezależnej działalności konkurencyjnej na rynku. Bank Centralny pełnił działalność podobną do obecnej komercyjnej, której jest obsługiwał różne podmioty. Rachunek ekonomiczny nie był brany pod uwagę jako główna wytyczna dla działalności gospodarczej. Najistotniejsza była realizacja centralnie narzuconych planów. Nieliczne banki były niedokapitalizowane, bez know-how i bez dostępu do konkurencyjnych technologii. Ale nastąpił okres, czyli o wprowadzeniu systemu gospodarczego. Transformacja bankowości oznaczała wiele zmian. Po pierwsze, liberalizacji dostępu do rynku, która w początkowej fazie doprowadziła do znacznego wzrostu liczby banków. Była to też prywatyzacja, której konsekwencją była zmiana struktury własności, a także tworzenie instytucji wspierających rynek bankowy, takich jak nadzór bankowy, Bankowy Fundusz Gwarantowania Depozytów, Centrum Ubezpieczeń Bankowych, Biuro Informacji Kredytowej, Biuro Informacji Gospodarczej czy Arbitraż Bankowy. W pierwszej połowie lat 90. doszło do nagłego wzrostu liczby banków. W kolejnych latach ich liczba zaczęła maleć na skutek upadłości, likwidacji, przejęć i połączeń. Jednocześnie wzrasta udział kapitału zagranicznego, a udział kapitału państwowego mala. Także zmalała liczba spółdzielni z ponad 1600 do około 600. Obecnie widzimy, że struktura własnościowa systemu bankowego w Polsce kształtuje się na zasadzie 50-50, czyli około 50% rynku należy do kapitału polskiego, a 50% do kapitału zagranicznego. Nagrałem na nazwie, ile ta krótka opowieść o historii bankowości Polski zainteresowała Was. I czekam, że kiedyś Cześć!
Dobra, dzięki Kasia. Słuchajcie, na koniec chcielibyśmy Wam słów kilka opowiedzieć o oszczędzaniu i inwestowaniu. Co warto inwestować, jak oszczędzać, by być bogatym. Posłuchajmy, jakie rady ma dla nas Dominika.
Korzystaj z bibliotek. Kupując komputer, zastanów się nad celem, jaki chcesz go używać. Nie warto przepłacać za sprzęt do utrzymania tylko Facebooka. Pod koniec lata sklepy odzieżowe trwają promocje na letnią ciuchy, natomiast zimową odzież można kupić taniej na wiosnę. Czy masz kartę fitness, z której nie korzystasz? Przyjrzyj wszystkie karty członkowskie i rozwiąż te umowy, z których nie korzystasz. Jeśli potrzebujesz małej pożyczki, porównaj koszty kredytu, ponieważ istnieją duże różnice między różnymi kredytami. Nowy klient może otrzymać pierwszą pożyczkę bez odsetek. Pozostaje jeszcze jedna ważna sprawa, na której nie warto oszczędzać. Ubezpieczenie podróżnicze. Jeżeli zgubisz bagaż lub rozchorujesz się podczas podróży, twoje ubezpieczenie powinno być dobre.
No dobra, Dominika powiedziała nam, jak możemy w prosty sposób na co dzień oszczędzać. Ale oszczędzanie związane jest też z inwestowaniem, a inwestowanie związane jest z ryzykiem. Ostatni rok pokazał nam, jak wiele ryzyk jest na co dzień. Nie tylko w naszym życiu codziennym, społecznym, gospodarczym, ale było to widoczne również na giełdzie. Pandemia koronawirusa, która wybuchła na początku ubiegłego roku, spowodowała bardzo duże zamknięcia na wielu giełdach, w tym na giełdzie polskiej. Zobaczcie, jak to wyglądało w przypadku głównego indeksu giełdowego warszawskiej giełdy. Spadki sięgały nawet kilkudziesięciu procent. Ale z drugiej strony ci, którzy mieli mocne nerwy i w tym momencie kupowali akcje, mogli bardzo wiele zarobić. Zwróćmy uwagę na kilka przykładów. Ciekawym przykładem jest spółka Lateral, która zajmuje się produkcją środków medycznych, w tym maseczek i środków do dezynfekcji. Na początku pandemii, w marcu, akcje tej spółki kosztowały 10 zł. Pół roku później, w październiku, akcje można było sprzedać za 700 zł. Zwróćcie uwagę, że można było zarobić 70-krotność tego, co włożyliśmy. Na przykład, gdybyśmy zaryzykowali i zainwestowali 1 000 000 złotych, to w ciągu pół roku mielibyśmy 70 milionów złotych. Oczywiście, kto wiedział, ten kupił, ale tak naprawdę trzeba było podjąć bardzo duże ryzyko.
Piotrek, a czy wiesz, na co oszczędzają Polacy?
Jak wynika z przeprowadzonych badań, Polacy oszczędzają tak naprawdę bez specjalnego celu. Aż 23% Polaków odkłada w ten sposób pieniądze. Około 22% Polaków odkłada pieniądze na wakacje i wypoczynek. 21% Polaków oszczędza na bieżące wydatki konsumpcyjne. Około 18% Polaków chce oszczędzone pieniądze przeznaczyć na remont domu lub mieszkania. 6,5% Polaków oszczędza na zakup nowego samochodu. Dominika, a czy wiesz, jak Polacy oceniają subiektywnie swoją kondycję finansową?
Wiem, pokażę Ci. Kondycja finansowa Polaków z ubiegłego roku jest coraz lepsza. Przykładowo w 2009 11,5% Polaków płaciło długi. W 2019 natomiast tylko 4%. Kolejną rzeczą jest to, jak już pytałam. W 2009 roku 24,7% Polaków oszczędzało, natomiast w 2019 41,9%, czyli prawie połowę.
Przyłączamy się do życzeń Kasi i bardzo serdecznie dziękuję Wam za to, że byliście z nami.
Do zobaczenia w Polsce i życzymy Wam kolejnych wielu ciekawych
Bardzo dziękujemy pani profesor i takim kreatywnym studentom. Film ciekawy z powodu języków też polskiego i angielskiego. Dziecięca politechnika w Zaporożu już rozpoczęła uczyć się języka polskiego i to przekażemy ten filmik dla dzieci, żeby studiowali i próbowali to rozumieć w języku angielskim i w języku polskim. Bardzo dziękujemy. Bardzo kreatywnie, interaktywnie i ciekawe.
Thank you so much again. And now the word is given to the Deputy Principal in Scientific, Pedagogical and Humanitarian.
Bardzo dziękujemy za ten wspaniały filmik, za taką bardzo dużo kreatywną pracę. Wielkie dziękujemy dla takich kreatywnych studentów. I już mówiłam, że w dziecięcej politechnice w Zaporożu uczymy się języka polskiego i to uczniowie będą też oglądać ten filmik w języku angielskim i polskim. Bardzo ciekawy. Dziękuję.
Proszę spasibo. Dziękuję bardzo, droga koleżanko i przyjaciółko Katarzyno.
Do podziękowania i kilku słów od naszego prorektora.
Proszę spasibo.
Yes, well, so the word is given to the Deputy Principal in Scientific, Pedagogical, Humanitarian Work of the National University Запорізька політехніка, Віктор Леонідович Хрешта. You are welcome.
Шановні пані та панове, я дякую всім учасникам нашої сьогоднішньої
I
зустрічі.
thank you all the participants of our today's meeting.
Для нас велика честь сьогодні познайомитися і поспілкуватися з нашими партнерами, майбутніми колегами.
We are very honored to meet our partners and future colleagues today.
Ми сьогодні послухали дійсно цікаві доповіді з різних сфер діяльності. Це і управлінська діяльність, це і наукова діяльність, і це промисловість і бізнес, IT-технології.
We have heard today really interesting reports in IT technology, science, development, and so on and so forth.
Сьогодні ми якраз маємо дуже гарний приклад, як мають започатковуватись партнерські відносини із і науковими установами, і з органами міської влади в європейському просторі.
Today we had a very good example how the partnership should be settled with different sides.
Особисто хочу подякувати за організацію цього заходу пані професора Гамулка і пані професора Бачієвську. Я думаю, що це буде гарним початком дійсно подання наших довгих партнерських відносин. І я думаю, що коли закінчаться ці часи пандемії, ми обов'язково запросимо вас до нашого заходу вищої освіти.
I personally want to thank Pani Hamulka and Pani Maciejewska for this event, and I hope when this COVID-19 situation is over to welcome you here in Zaporizhia.
Я думаю, якщо якраз це буде стосуватись і науково-педагогічних працівників наших закладів освіти, і обов'язково студентів.
I think it will be both considered as to scientific workers from our universities and our students.
На все добре, бажаю всіляких гараздів.
Thank you very much. Have a good day and good luck.
So our venue has come to an end. I have this feeling that the science has really connected us tonight. And I would like to thank you very much for inviting us to this great venue. I really hope that it's not the last venue that we do together. And I would like to invite you to visit us in Gdańsk University of Technology, hoping that our cooperation will be more fruitful and that we can do all together a lot of projects.
Thank you very much for your support.
Здравствуйте, друзья. Это Iot науки. Это первая встреча. Думаю, что не последняя встреча, что будет следующее в будущем. Большое спасибо за все, за работу, за ваши фильмы, что мы встретились сегодня. Большое спасибо.
И вам большое спасибо.
Большое спасибо.
У нас заодно...
До следующей встречи. Да, до следующей встречи.
Thank you very much.
Камеру на ночь повести.
Все,